support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I will take this obligation freely
I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties,
and I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
on which I'm about to.
upon I am about to enter.
Thank you.
All right,
Congratulations.
thank you. Okay.
All right, who's next? Yeah, I'll go ahead and you go ahead and sign right here. Okay, excellent. Chris? Do you want to say swear or? Affirm? Affirm. Okay. Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Chris Rogers,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States,
and the Constitution
the Constitution
of the State of California
of the State of California,
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
on which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Ray, did you do this with your microphone because they're not getting it online?
I can bring that microphone over, sure. I think honestly, probably better for you to speak as opposed to me.
Okay,
Okay. I swear or affirm.
affirm.
Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Connie Santilli,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
to the Constitution
and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation,
without any mental reservation
purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Son.
Awesome. All right. We are once again a full council. So now let's take some roll.
Okay, I mean, technically, it's just a meeting procedural thing that you, to start meeting. It it has nothing to do with swearing in, but, okay. Gus,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Connie,
Here.
Kevin,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
and Kimberly is here. Did I get everybody?
Okay. Great. All right. Then next on our agenda is to have our officer elections. We'll start with the election of chair. Before I ask for nominations for chair, I just want to say it has been an honor to serve as chair this last year, to work with 6 immensely talented and passionate people, and I look forward to working with 6 more awesome, passionate people this coming year. And when Greg asked me at the beginning, what do you want to accomplish as chair? I said, what I primarily want to accomplish is improving our relationship as a council with the rest of county government. And I think I can honestly say we made some real progress on that this last year. So happy to do that. Now happy to accept nominations for the chair. And before somebody jumps in, let me just say, according to Robert's Rules of Order, I have to ask that 3 times. So like nobody misinterpret why I'm asking 3 times. With that, I will accept any nominations for chair for 2025. Do we have any nomination?
I'll nominate.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Claire for chair.
Great. Do we have any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? No, great. Then all those in favor of Claire for chairmanship this year, please say aye.
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 I,
Any nays? Abstentions? Great. I feel like we should gavel this, but we don't have a gavel, so I'll just Nikita Khrushchev this thing. Claire, you are officially chair. The con is yours.
Okay, thank you. Give her your chair.
I don't think she wants that.
We'll move on to the vice chair position, and I guess I have to ask that 3 times too. Okay. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
You have to ask it another time, or can we?
No, you can jump in now.
I'll go ahead and nominate again. Kimberly, I would love to see you as the vice chair.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? So we have a nomination for vice chair of Kimberly Williams. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, congratulations, Kimberly. We'll move on to the secretary position. Are there any nominations for secretary? Yes.
I nominate Connie for secretary.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Any further nominations for secretary? So we have a nomination of Connie Santilli for secretary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, I think.
Not sure yet.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then for treasurer, are there any nominations for treasurer? No, you were gonna nominate somebody, I thought.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm gonna nominate Kevin then.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations for treasurer? What, going last time, nominations for treasurer? Do we have a nominee for treasurer of Kevin? I can't say your last name.
Nishinsky, but Kevin S is cool with me.
Cool, okay, I'll practice it.
All right.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed? Congratulations, Kevin.
Scott, I hope you didn't want to not relinquish.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I hope it wasn't anything like, oh, no.
So the next section of the meeting is the report from the Board of Supervisors and other government agencies. And do you want to give the report, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had our changeover meeting yesterday, and Jackie, former Congresswoman Jackie Spear joined the board, as well as Lisa Gaucher. David Campbell was elected board president. And so it was a great meeting. I'm really looking forward to serving the 2 new board members. We are having an open house on Monday the 13th. I wanted to invite you all to it here at our coast side office. Thank you. It's there'll be a number of nonprofits from throughout the coast there, as well as Silicon Valley.
I'll be there, you go.
You'll be there.
Yeah, I signed up already.
Great. Wonderful. So please come. We really want folks to be able to interact, see the different nonprofits that are there, and also just have community with each other. And then the other thing we wanted to do here in the new year, as soon as that you all are able, I really want to bring you all to County Center and have a reception so that you can go ahead and meet with the counterparts at the county who you sometimes interact with. I know sometimes you interact with them on the screens, they'll show up, but to really be able to sit down and just break bread with them and get to know them, There's the head, so would be the head of county parks, the human services agency. That I know you interact with Connie, for instance, with respect to your budget. Just all bring together all the different people that this board interacts with, this body interacts with. And let you meet in with people at County Center all at once, and we'd love to have you there and just have and enjoy your company and let you get to know all of them. And so as soon as you're able, we'll go ahead, we'll reach out to you and send some and ask you basically for dates that work. I'd love to have you there one evening to do that. And really in this new year, the other thing I shared before the meeting started was, you know, the first 2 years I was on the board of supervisors, I joked that they hazed me and they put me just about on every regional committee that you can imagine. And I did that for 2 years. But then with the opportunity to have new board members come on was the opportunity to have people take on some of that load. And so I actually am not on some of those regional committees anymore, which means that I get to use my time differently in a way that I most want to. And so I can be present here more for myself in these meetings instead of just having a staff member here. So I look forward to doing that and really interacting with you in a way that I think one of the difficulties that I think perhaps in the past has been, I know that people want to do projects and I have to get those projects through and get budget for them at the county. I've been able to finally get the county to set aside in their budgetary process, money set asides for capital projects that I think I've shared with you in the past. The counties didn't have that process before. But I'll be able to really sit down with you and figure out how some of those things that you might want to do, how we get that through the bureaucracy at the county, or if I can't find money for it, how money can be looked for here, candidly. So like I know tonight you guys are going to talk about the stormwater management issue. Having done research on that issue goes all the way back, to a number of supervisors past, where there was a decision made not to collect money for a stormwater management district here. So there's no increment for that. And so if we want to do those projects, I got to figure out with you how we find money for it. The way I started to do that in the last 2 years was in the budget process to say, you got to set aside money for capital improvements. But if it doesn't accumulate fast enough, then you all speaking for the community here are telling me you want it. What I'm going to need to do is work with you, going back to that sort of original charter for the MCC, and figure out how do we go out and ask the community, is this something that they want, so much so that we look to figure out a way for a revenue source for it. So I really look forward to that interaction with you to figure out how we sit down, really address those issues that you're hearing from the community and figure out how we can get a dialogue going back and forth with the county to solve those problems.
It's very gracious. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I appreciate all your service. So thank you.
Are there any questions from the council for Ray? Any questions from the community for Ray? Okay, thank you very much.
I see.
Anne's got her hand up.
Anne
popped up and-
hands raised.
Andy, Anne, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a question, and I don't know if I need to make it during public comment or now, but I wanted to request a meeting of the entire coast, if possible, about fire prevention and, especially with what's going on down south. We are at really the greatest risk, I believe, in the whole Bay Area for the same thing to happen to us. And we need to have a better plan than what we have. And I believe we're going to need resources to make sure that our firefighters have everything they need to put out these fires. And I think we need to do a better job of making sure that our fire hydrants will not be empty during a fire.
So you want to keep them all in
Can everybody
these
mute themselves? other
big
than
boxes?
please?
It's Len, mute Len, Greg, if you would, thank you.
That's
So
okay.
were you able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to know if, to as early as possible, if we could please come up with some kind of meeting for the entire coastside to discuss what we can do, how the agencies can better work together. And more importantly, make sure that there are appropriate plans for people to evacuate. We can't have what they had down there where people are running from the flames, leaving their cars in the road, because that could happen very easily. And houses in Malibu that were on the beach burned to the ground. And so we were told at one point to go to the beach as one of the evacuation plans. I mean, that's clearly not an option. So I think that we need to do a better job and really come up with better solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. And I'll share with you candidly, it's been on my mind too, after watching what happened in the tsunami and how bad those tsunami alert and how bad those freeways, how bad the highway and the freeway got impacted. And then thinking about how the solutions that we've come forward since that is that we need to make, what we said in that was that we need to figure out the right zones. So we notify the right people. But if we're in a situation where everybody is imperiled by upcoming fire, then that's not really going to work. So it's definitely something that we need to meet with the community about. And it's just having seen that happen in the tsunami alert, it's definitely, I'm always candid. It's something that's on my mind, and I will try to bring together emergency stakeholders to talk about it with the community once they've had a chance to digest it as well. But I don't deny, looking at the way the Pacific Palisades is laid out, there are some very strong analogies to the way that we're laid out here.
Sid Young, I'd like to keep the questions and everything else fairly brief tonight if we can. So go ahead, Sid. You have a question for Ray?
Yeah, actually, I think I have two questions for Ray. One is, what meetings are you no longer, committees are you no longer on? Are you still on Emergency Services Council?
So I was never on the Emergency Services Council, but as you know, that's a major interest of mine, and I work very closely with DEM, so I don't need to be on it to do the work that I do there. But the main ones that I'm not on anymore I had major regional work was Caltrain, because I've served on multiple. I've served not only on that, but on multiple committees related to it and its relationship to some projects they were doing. I'm no longer on Samtrans, and I'm no longer on the Transportation Authority.
Well, that sounds cool with me because none of those really affect the coast, but I would think the DEM definitely does. And,
Did you have another question, Sid?
Yes, I do, Claire. The other thing that I thought was important was that you were you're still on the Len Matterman's group. I forget the name of it right now.
I am still on One Shoreline, yeah.
Okay.
I'm on most of the coast specific related. Actually, I'd say all of the coast specific related committees. I will still be appointed to.
Good. The last question I had then was when it comes to stormwater, which you brought up, when MidPenn put their proposal together, they said that there was stormwater runoff going to be mitigated by the storm drainage in Moss Beach, and there are no sewer, I should say stormwater capacity on Carlos Street. So I'm just wondering, is MidPenn going to have to pay their fair share for the runoff management, since obviously there isn't any right now and there's no funding with the county?
I'll look into it with Mr. Monowitz, but typically in projects like that, that would be something that would be assessed to the developer. Yes.
Okay, great.
I'll check with Mr. Monowitz. The only wrinkle in that I'm not sure about is because it's a nonprofit affordable housing project, how that works. But I've been involved in so many developments over the last 12 years. Usually there are fees associated to the developer for improvements like that.
Okay, because sometimes the downtown Moss Beach area does flood. Thank you. That's all I have for now. And I am also concerned about fire evacuation. Thank you.
Yeah, and so Sid, I have talked with the county executive about looking for that evacuation center. So it is on his mind as well.
Yeah, I think just having a plan too. Didn't seem like we had much of a plan now. During the tsunami.
Brunette, you had a question for Ray?
Yeah, just a quick question related to the funding of the stormwater that you brought up. As you know, we have that issue with Quarry Park, and then you were talking about potentially going to the community to help fund the infrastructure projects. I'm wondering, is it possible to get some funds from the Parks Department since the flooding comes directly originates and comes from the Quarry Park from Quarry Park? Or is that just a no way we could get some funds, sharing in funds? I wouldn't say that, but sharing in funds from the Parks Department.
I don't know the answer to that, Burnett. I apologize. I don't. I mean, honestly, in what the last time we looked at that issue, what we looked at and what I've talked with the head of the Parks Department and Public Works Department about is that there is the ability to be able to run a subline down to where from the park and from that park entrance where water flows out, bring it subterranean, then run it down to the recent work that was done I think it's about 2 blocks west. And if we could connect it to that. But in terms of where the funding comes, that I don't know if that would come out of the Parks Department or if they would look for a grant or where they would look from. But that was one of the reasons why through that last budget cycle, I made the point of saying to them that they needed to start basically taking money out of every budget and setting it aside for capital improvements on the Midcoast.
That would be great. I just think of, for fairness, if it is going to be go to the community to fund that there should be some sharing of funding rather than going completely to the community, particularly for that item. Thank you.
I understand. I mean, so like I said, we're gonna have to have a real discussion around. When I go, all I'm sharing back to you is what is said to me. When I go to the county and I say, I want stormwater management, what I heard back is that's great, but the community opted out of a stormwater management district decades ago. So we're gonna have to talk about that. That's not, I mean, I didn't make that up. That's what's being said to me. And so what I have to figure out is I have to sit down with the community, with you all, talk about that, go back, look at the record of decision-making process around that. At the same time, it's incumbent for me to be pressing for them to be pulling money out of the budget, which I'm doing as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know that there's been somebody assigned to us from Half Moon Bay at this point. Is there anybody from any other government agencies that's here to give us a report?
Nicholas has his hand up.
Nicholas? Okay. Nicholas, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas. I'm a field representative for Congressman Sam Liccardo, and I'm calling in to congratulate Mr. Snishinsky, Ms. Santilli, and Mr. Rogers for being sworn in. Congressman Liccardo looks forward to working with you all to serve the residents of the Midcoast side. If we can be helpful in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know that there's any council follow-up reports tonight. I'm not aware of any. Okay. Then we'll move on to public comment. If there's any comment on something that's not on the agenda, 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Okay, moving right along to the
Nicholas.
Oh, Nicholas, I'm sorry. Somehow I can't see that. Okay.
I thought Len wanted to make a public comment.
Oh, Len, maybe okay. I was moving too fast. Nicholas, you had a public comment?
I think he just took it.
Oh,
You just took,
I just participated, but thank you.
okay. Were you trying to make a comment?
No, I put that off to next meeting.
Okay, so I guess we're okay there then.
Great.
Okay. Consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. One is to approve the minutes from November 13th and December 11th. And the other is to approve spending resolution for audiovisual hardware that we need to continue the Zoom things.
So,
Do we have a motion?
not yet. I must ask to push the December 11th meetings minutes to the next meeting because I did not finish them. So I apologize. I'm so way behind on those. So it would just be the November 13th minutes.
Okay, so the two items minus the December 11th meetings.
Correct.
Minutes. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve,
Yeah, I move we approve the minutes.
is there a second?
I read the minutes and second that way.
Could you call, let's see, who's secretary calls the roll?
Correct. Are you? ready
Did
to-
you probably didn't know that.
No.
Let's let the old secretary call the roll.
Okay. Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes.
Connie,
Abstain.
Kevin,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Kimberly is a yes. Thank you.
good.
It
So
passes
that's,
with
so
one
they're
abstention.
approved. We will need somebody to go buy those things. I think what we needed is an HDMI cord and a power strip.
I can handle that.
Pardon me?
I can take care of that.
Okay, check with Greg if you would to make sure you're getting exactly what we need. Thank you.
You probably have them at home actually. So
Okay. And then when you buy it, give you're the
should I
treasurer.
give myself the receipt?
Yeah, but there's a process. We'll go through it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Just hang on to your receipt.
I will.
Okay. So moving on to the regular agenda. First item on the agenda is a update from the new, from, I have your name here as Captain Rick, but I doubt if that's your whole name.
It's a tricky job, but Rick works just fine.
And you're the,
I'm
our
the
district commander.
I'm the sheriff's captain in charge of the coast and police services for Half Moon Bay.
Welcome. Please tell us what you have for us.
Basically, just came here today with the intention of introducing myself, tell you a little bit about myself. Obviously, my name is Rick Chichov. I'm from San Mateo County. I was born here. I was raised here. I actually started my career out here on the coast. I did my first 11 years with the Half Moon Bay Police Department before we were absorbed by the sheriff's office. My first 6 years were on a motor. Then I did another 5 years on a motor. I'm actually one of my core competencies is reconstructing collisions. So traffic is near and dear to my heart. That's definitely a priority. If there's something that is completely preventable, it's traffic collisions and the damage that they cause. But after that, when I was in the jail, I got a chance to meet a lot of people. Contrary to popular belief, they're not all bad people. And I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned is that gangs and drugs, not that I didn't know it before, but I didn't realize how pervasive it was. How it really destroys the fabric of a society and how that's also one of my focuses. Unfortunately, due to recent events, as the Honorable Supervisor noted, emergency preparedness has really moved to the forefront. I think we all saw what happened and we can all agree that there's a lot of improvements to be made for our emergency preparedness. And not just for tsunamis, not just for fires, but for earthquakes. And the next time that the coast gets closed off from the outside world because of landslides or rains. And these are things that now is a time to prepare for them. So, and I'm sorry if I drone on a bit, but that's a little bit about me and some of my priorities. If you have any questions, please, I'd be happy to answer them.
Kevin?
Yeah. So I just wanted to go back to one of your earlier interests. You mentioned traffic, and I could probably have 500 signatures of neighbors who really think speeding and lack of speed bumps and kind of lack of control of traffic within the unincorporated areas, not just on the freeway. I know in the last 7 months, I think we've had 3 fatalities of neighbors, community members, and I know, you know, so many parents, so many people who walk their dogs, and in a lot of these areas, as you know, it's up and down steep hills and not a lot of lights, and I think it's actually a relevant point to kind of keep at the forefront, not just emergency preparedness. And I'm curious to know the relationship between your office and larger government entities in order to actually work on any business. So if we were to come to you with an issue or an idea for something, would you then have to reach out to Ray's office or other entities, or would you have the ability to kind of answer those questions for us directly?
It would depend on what's being asked. I mean, obviously, and one of the things is what I would do is probably take more of a leadership role, simply because there is a tendency, especially when you involve multiple agencies. For speed bumps, like you mentioned, you have to involve engineering and planning and DPW, because believe it or not, there's a whole set of rules that go along where speed bumps can be placed. So, and I would be the one that could kind of help facilitate that, help push for it and become the advocate, even though it's not really a law enforcement function per se, but exactly like you said, it affects the community, so it affects us.
Right.
So yeah, please.
I always use that as an example. There's a lot of things, El Granada Boulevard, where I live, happens to be a thoroughfare and one of the entry points in case there's an emergency at the gates to get over to the Mid Peninsula. And there's a lack of kind of red curbs. There's parking that makes it very dangerous to just pass a single car. I was hit 2 years ago, just walking in my neighborhood. The car clipped me and didn't stop. So it is an issue.
Oh,
This is something to raise to both of us. I have worked on these issues in my office, gotten resolved, and so raising it to both of us allows us to get done.
Scott, did you? Okay.
No, I'm actually calling on people. But were there any other questions from the council, Gus?
What can we do to help you? Is there anything that this council can do to support your work?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure there is. Of course, my mind goes blank when you ask that. But I mean, I think one of the biggest things is building the relationship and opening these lines of dialogue, because the bottom line is, it may sound bad, but we can't be effective without your help. It really is a community. We're not an occupying force. We're here to help. And that requires a two-way, communication. Exactly like you said, we may see certain things, but when you live here, you see other things. And that's what helps us determine the problems, set our priorities, and work on these problems together. So I look forward to talking to you in the future, and I'm sure I will come to you with asks in the future.
Thank you.
Let me ask one quick question.
Yes.
What are the hours of operation for your station in Half Moon Bay by the skateboard park and the one in El Granada? When is the one in Half Moon Bay?
So the one in Half Moon Bay is, and there is some leeway depending on holidays and so on and so forth, but generally 8 to noon, then
Okay.
break for lunch, noon to 1,
Okay,
and then open 1 to 4:30.
okay.
The one in El Granada, unfortunately, we don't have a front desk person. We did have somebody there before, unless something has changed, if they've gotten a temp, which they largely, because the supervisors work out of that office.
Yeah.
I actually tend to more work out of Half Moon Bay. Supervisors tend to work out of Moss Beach, but we do go back and forth.
Okay.
That one is more of a substation for the deputies. As last time I checked, we haven't filled the front desk position. So, but if you knock on the door, if there's somebody in there, they'll open it. But unfortunately, we don't have somebody that's actually there business hours.
Chris?
So a non-emergency call from a member of the public to the Half Moon Bay office that goes to voicemail. Is there an expectation that that call is going to be answered, or is it sort of prioritized by somebody deciding whether or not it warrants attention?
Oh, there's an expectation it'll be answered. If you call or somebody you speak to calls and they don't get a call back, they don't get an answer, please contact me directly.
I'm contacting.
We will be talking.
It's about the tree fall and the down power line yesterday.
Okay. So you absolutely should expect a callback, a response of some sort, letting you know. And in cases like that, even if it's after the fact, you can update, hey, we got your message. This is what happened. Somebody should be calling you back.
And
I apologize that nobody did.
And the issue was that traffic control during the commute hours as people were coming down Alhambra, right, where it diverges to Obispo, driving into the morning sun, could not see the little yellow tape, which was all that was informing them that there was no thoroughfare there now. So, it's all a little bit of chaos around that intersection.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But there's also, they should be on the recording, maybe they've changed it. There should be a line that goes, a non-emergency line that goes into dispatch, which is actually, and it's easy to remember. It's 363, the standard county prefix, 4911. And that'll put you right through the dispatch non-emergency line. So you don't have to worry about disrupting emergency services to somebody else, but you'll actually speak to a person and they can kind of give you a little bit of feedback right away and follow up to make sure that somebody gets, but I will follow up. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Did you have a question, Kimberly?
I just wanted to say that I actually did call, and that process that you described did work. So it does function. I don't know why it didn't function in your case, but it worked for me.
Okay, but at the same time, this is the unfortunate thing of dealing in public service is you never know if it's a one-off or it's just a pattern you haven't heard about. So it's always better to look into it and see what we can find out. So I appreciate you saying that.
I have two questions briefly. One is, I'm a little confused about the Midcoast substations. I had heard the one in Moss Beach was moving to El Granada. Are they both going to be open or what's happening there?
No, I'm assuming you say, and sorry, when you said El Granada, I was thinking the one in Moss Beach.
That's right. I meant Moss Beach, not El Granada.
Sorry. So the one on Obispo and El Granada, the old fire station 41.
Yeah.
So that is going to be converted into a resource center for emergency needs. The exact contours of that, I don't think have actually been hammered out, but they are working on it to make it a resource center. It's not going to be an actual substation. It's going to be the substation in Moss Beach and the substation in Half Moon Bay.
Okay, thank you. The other question was about, I think it's the CARES project, although I'm not clicking totally right at the moment. It's the one where you send out the mental health type people for instead of the sheriff or in addition to the sheriff. Is that still working? How's it doing? Is it on the Midcoast actively?
It is actively out here. They're more centered in Half Moon Bay simply because, but that doesn't mean they don't help elsewhere. And to be honest, it has been very successful. I was just speaking to the city manager and he's trying to find the funding to extend it for another year. Because as you all know, a lot of these times we end up getting called simply because we're the only ones that pick up the phone and they don't really need law enforcement. They need services. So that's where CARES has been really good about helping de-escalate situations, put people into touch with resources and avoiding, a negative contact.
Since it's less active in the Midcoast, is that because there hasn't been a perceived need for it or because the funding hasn't been provided or something else?
I'll have to ask about that, to be honest with you, because I know that they're obviously based out of Half Moon Bay, their office in Half Moon Bay. But I don't know why they don't come up here. If it is, like you said, if it's less of a need or they're being pulled away by other areas, I'll have to ask and find out, but I can get back to you.
I think I actually have a question for you, Claire, because I want to piggyback on what you asked about the mental health services. In terms of how we come to our guests with those kinds of requests, do we funnel those through to you now as the chair and have you help us qualify and quantify our request? Because that specific issue in terms of how to get somebody from mental health services or services specific and not somebody else has come up multiple times on Nextdoor within my social network, and I actually just don't even know how to access it.
That's probably something we should talk about after the meeting.
Okay.
Because it may generate an agenda item or maybe generate some research that needs to be done or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's throw it open to the public and see if there are any questions for you, Rick. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sid, go ahead.
Oops, sorry. Rick, I didn't catch your last name. The microphone wasn't loud enough. What was your last name?
Oh, my apologies. It's Chichov.
Oh, how do you spell that?
It's CHEECHOV.
Okay, thank you. Now I have it. Okay, so I have a couple questions for you. one is, are you aware of the recent accident at Cypress and Highway 1?
It's not coming to mind. You'll have to inform me. I apologize.
I can't inform you because I didn't see it. I only saw a picture of it on Nextdoor, but that particular intersection is near the Moss Beach corridor, which Caltrans doesn't promise to improve before 2030. And that is the street that I come and go out of, as do many people from Pillar Ridge, Seal Cove, the Seal Cove Inn, the Moss Beach Distillery, the Marine Reserve. It's a pretty well-used intersection, and there's no acceleration lane leaving from the west side to go north. So there's often quite a few accidents there. And the one that they just showed on Nextdoor looked like a truck went right into the gully. So I was wondering, how could one obtain a rundown of all the accidents at Cypress and Highway 1 in Moss Beach?
So the traffic in that area is general. Let me rephrase that. Collisions in the unincorporated area are handled by CHP. They
Okay,
would be the
thanks.
best source to get the data on that.
Okay, and then my second question was, being that it seems like the Half Moon Bay, since they started renting the sheriffs to do their police activities down in Half Moon Bay, they coaxed you guys to leave the Moss Beach substation and put your headquarters down in Half Moon Bay. So I'm wondering, as far as the sheriff's Midcoast activities, how is that divided between like traffic enforcement, crime investigation, or prevention? And are there any basic patrols anymore still? For the
Oh, yeah.
Midcoast, not for Half Moon Bay. I know they have their own problems down there.
Well, so we actually have two people. So basically the way we divide the coast side up, so from Pacifica down to the Santa Cruz County line is the contract city of Half Moon Bay. And then the unincorporated area north of Half Moon Bay and south of Half Moon Bay. And each one of those areas has two deputies. And there are two detectives that service it. So in terms of investigations, what normally happens is the initial investigation is done by the deputy on the scene. They're the first ones. Well, obviously they're going to be the first ones there because they're only a few minutes away. They take the initial report, they gather initial information. Then if investigations are needed, a detective is needed, they call them out. And there are two dedicated detectives throughout the coast side. One of the advantages with the sheriff's office is if, God forbid, something were to happen, say in Montero, and then say that needs a detective, and then something else happens in, say, Pescadero that needs a detective. Well, we can draw from other areas to help us handle those calls, get it started, get the initial investigation done. In terms of traffic, that's a little different. So the sheriff's office does handle traffic enforcement, including collisions in contract cities such as Half Moon Bay. On the coast, deputies do traffic enforcement, but collisions are usually handled by CHP, which is why I said for Cypress, CHP should have those numbers. But in terms of if you want citation data, that's something that we can provide. If you call our records, they should be able to pull out some of that data for you. Right now, we don't have a dedicated motor assigned to the coast. That is something I would like to see, and I do think is needed. Unfortunately, as I'm sure, and I apologize for looking at the screen because you're right here in front of me and I probably should be looking at you, but as you all know, this is not like Redwood City where it's well lit, the lanes are well marked. There's a lot of dark areas. There's a lot of blind curves. Even for people who live here, they can still get caught off guard. So I would very much like to see a full-time motor be brought out to the coast. And hopefully in the near future, we can figure it out.
Well, my
So,
last.
and I, so that, did I miss anything?
Yeah, well, no, I just wanted to know there was no actual enforcement of like red light runners, stop sign runners, people that are breaking into cars at night and that sort of thing. As far as I know, it's only you come and make the report after it's already happened if there's an accident. That's what it sounds like, what you just said. And you only have two deputies and two detectives, but is that per shift or is that for the three different areas, South Coast, Mid Coast, and Half Moon Bay?
That's two at all times. So In other words, 2 on day shift, 2 on night shift. And
For
there
the
is
whole area from Pacifica to Santa Cruz County line.
I'm sorry, say again.
That's 2 on duty for the whole area from the Santa Cruz County line up to Pacifica?
No, that's 2 on duty from Half Moon Bay up to Pacifica.
Okay,
Then 2 on duty in the city of Half Moon Bay. And then 2 more on duty
okay,
from Half Moon Bay to the Santa Cruz County line.
cool.
So that's a given 6 deputies at any given time. There is also an additional deputy that comes in on night shift that services the La Honda area.
And last question, my friend texted me to ask you, why wasn't the flag lowered at the sheriff's department, like for Carter, since everybody else has done theirs over the hill and around here?
It will be lowered tomorrow.
Okay, great,
I'll be
thanks.
honest, this is, I did not know.
Okay.
Thank you. Greg, I think you have a question. Is that right?
Yeah, probably 3 related things, and I think Rick may have answered part of the question when he pointed me to CHP. I had also called the sheriff's department on the day of the tsunami alert when multiple residents alerted me to a near fatality on Highway 1 between Coronado and the harbor. I was told it was a sheriff's deputy on a motorcycle. That was not reported anywhere I could find. So I called the sheriff's office and I did not get called back. Yes, Kimberly did, but I think Chris said he did not. So that's just another data point. I called both the Half Moon Bay number and the El Granada number. I hope the officer in question is okay. Apparently he's a local resident here. So that's just one more data point on our evacuation management issues that appears, I'm told, an officer was injured. So again, my regrets for that incident. Thank you.
Yeah, he was actually an officer with the Pacifica Police Department. And last I heard, he had been taken to Stanford and he was doing well, but I will check up on him.
Rick, I appreciate your coming in as Gus. What?
Good hand from Dan.
So in the room. Dan, you have a question.
Microphone.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, thank you for the report. It's really nice to see you here. I want to ask a question. This is something that has been a concern of mine. I'm glad actually Ray's in the room. Apologize if it seems it might at the end it might be a very big kind of an ask kind of a thing. Something that was brought up here in this room. I want to say 6-8 years ago when the CHP officer was reporting to our council. And the concern is the tinted windows and now tinted windshields. And I just want to let everybody know that, you know, I grew up in San Francisco and at an early age, I learned how to safely cross streets. And I learned very young, never, ever to walk in front of a car unless I get eye contact. So that I know for certain that that driver can see me. And still standing here today. You know, not only pedestrians, cyclists, you know, cyclists move faster, maybe a little bit more important now when you're on a cycle and electric skateboards, etc. Very important to have this communication, eye communication between the driver and pedestrian, cyclist, etc. Since 7 years ago, I've witnessed it's an escalation. In my opinion, it's out of control. That so many more cars now have the tinted windows. You walk up to the side. I've seen security cars. I've seen Uber drivers. I've seen company trucks. It's in my opinion out of control. They're just not enforced, it appears. I understand there may be some gray areas, but clearly the tinted front windshield is absolutely, from what that's what the CHP officer told me. Anyway, it's just one of those sociological things is just happening in our culture. more and more cars are coming, you see them, recently and locally, full blackout, front windshield side, there's no way possible to get any kind of eye contact. So my question to you is, are you aware of, this, coming up and being more prevalent? I'd like to encourage, the sheriff's department to talk to the county, and eventually it probably comes from the state of California, Sacramento. But I'd really like to hear, in this regard, what is being done to enforce and to provide, safety for pedestrians and cyclists to be able to have this visual eye contact communication.
I completely agree. Unfortunately, there is a tendency for people to not make that eye contact. Unfortunately, a lot of lessons that we learned as young people aren't being passed on. And I think one of the reasons may be because of exactly what you said. Now, in terms of the enforcement, I can pull up the numbers. I know that my people are very proactive. We do what we can. Unfortunately, it's become exactly like you said, a bit of a cultural thing. It's a bit of a fashion thing. And I've actually had people that I've written tickets to for tinted windows. They get the tint removed, they get it corrected, and then a week later, they get the tint put right back on. I'm not saying that justifies anything, or don't get me wrong, please don't misunderstand me, but I'm just saying, I can mention it again to my people to make sure they realize this is a priority. But unfortunately, there's so much we can do.
Yeah, this is why I probably should go up to Sacramento, because, we're not the only community that's, having injuries as a result.
Absolutely.
Well, once again, Rick, I really appreciate your coming. I hope this isn't the last that we see each other. As Greg said, we're happy to help in any way we can. And thank you for coming.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for having
much.
me. Thank you.
The last item on the regular agenda is Gus's. Do you want to introduce it?
Oh, sure. As I think you all know, Greg's been working on the water report for the coast side, and I think he's got some updates for us on content, process, so forth. So, Greg, floor is yours.
Thanks, Gus. Yeah, I'm going to ask for council direction on this matter. But first, allow me to summarize the progress and status so far since our last meeting. I incorporated a number of comments from CCAG, City and County Association of Government, from an engineering firm, from a biologist, and a former geologist for USGS, and a former director of NOAA and the National Weather Service into the document. I was unable to get everything done. I got some very extensive comments from Burnett, for instance, which included suggesting probably logical reorganization of all the recommendations, and I just didn't have time. I had so many problems with the styles and formatting in Microsoft Word. I can tell you now, you'll find cases where the outline numbering goes crazy and I couldn't fix it. So I've got more to do. I did want to summarize some of the major issues that I think I see, though. There are people paying some very high cost burdens for stormwater damage. Initially, I was hearing people say, I spent $15,000, I spent $30,000, I spent $50,000, I spent $60,000. Then there was a woman that said $100,000. And because stormwater is not included in most home insurance policies, these costs are paid by people directly. I now have somebody claiming to have spent $200,000 between the damages and relocation costs. So this stormwater burden, I gather, isn't publicized, and I have no organized way of gathering it, but it has become significant for the people who are unfortunately in the lower lying areas of our neighborhood. I've also found in putting this report together that there's even infighting between neighbors. One property's stormwater solution is another's flooding problem. So there's, I guess you would call it a moral or a community issue to this. The number of impermeable surfaces that we have and continue to permit is more than the stormwater systems that we have or don't have can handle. I also found that there are some wildfire insurance lessons that should apply to stormwater as well. I don't know if you're aware, yeah, probably all are, how difficult it's been to get wildfire insurance since the state passed Prop 103 in 1988, I think it was. They refused to allow the insurance industry to use forward-looking modeling and insisted they continue to use historical data for their risk assessments. It resulted in about a 20% savings for many ratepayers, but the insurance industry faced loss ratios over 100% in a number of firms. This was documented by Harold Herman, bless him, some years back. Fortunately, just this last month, apparently the state is now going to allow wildfire insurance people to use more realistic climate data in their assessments. And I bring this up because we need the same thing for stormwater. And we're still using historical data. It's way out of date and it's way inadequate for the actual rainfall we're getting here on the coast. So those are just some of the high level things I found. To a point to Ray, it was a surprise not only to me, but also to members of the county DPW and planning. There is, and some of them, obviously others notified me of this, there is a fund set aside for infrastructure on the Midcoast. It's described in the funding section of the report, and the balance at the end of 2023 allocated to the Midcoast was $604,000. It's unclear to me and to some I corresponded with exactly the linkage, but that fund does exist and is funded. I can't describe to you how the per square foot fee gets captured and physically added into that fund. Just a data point, but obviously we need a lot more of it. And there's some recommendations in the report. As a guess, the impact fee on a new construction should be about $10,000. That makes a lot of assumptions, but it's significant. And then there's going to have to be an annual charge to maintain that. And I guess it's about $750. Obviously, a lot of work will need to be done to finalize that and raise that money. Now, I don't expect any of you has even looked at the report. I just published it about 3 hours before the meeting, so I'm sorry. But what I would like to do, and it's described in the process section of the report, and I brought it up before, is to send this draft to the local agencies for comment. Obviously, I have talked to them and received some comments already, but I think as a formality, before we forward anything to the county, we want to make sure that we're accurately conveying the issues that we've heard. And by agencies, I would mean the City of Half Moon Bay, Montero Water and Sanitary District, Granada Community Services District, SAM. I'm unsure about CCWD, the Water District in Half Moon Bay, the Harbor, and the School District. This report doesn't appear to touch on them. And then my other question to the council is, if you agree this should be distributed, does the council want to write those emails, or do you want to authorize me to send them for the consideration of those agencies to comment on behalf of the MCC? So that's my immediate summary, and glad to take any questions and direction.
Kimberly?
Thanks, Greg. I, of course, have not had time to read through it, although I did prepare some comments to a few things that I'll be sending to you. But based on what you just said, did I hear you correctly that you said the Harbor District does not have stormwater issues included in this report?
The water quality issues are identified in the beginning of the report as not really our scope. They are talked about. And certainly there is a water quality discharge issue at the northeast end of the harbor. But what I'm saying is it's not clear to me that the Harbor District has a stormwater management problem. But of course, that's one reason I'd like to consider sending it to them to find out if they do, and if, the people I've talked to have missed it.
I would argue that there is a stormwater management issue in with the Harbor District. And I'm not sure that asking them if they have an issue that they'd like to include is the best approach, because I don't think that they've sought to address those issues over time anyway. So I guess I I hesitate because this is already a huge report. And I guess what I'd like to see without having read all of it, what I would like to see constructively come out of it is some concrete recommendations based on some very local and specific areas that need attention. Does that make sense?
That is in the report. Whether that's everything everyone wants is unclear. There are recommendations by neighborhood and agency and a summary of the recommendations. But I would argue that I'd like this to be as inclusive as possible. And if you or others can explain to me the stormwater problems in the harbor, I'd be glad to do a little auditing and research and add a section.
Okay. And then the last thing is that I would encourage, I believe that if we've looked at this as something that the council would accept and promote, and I think that we should, be able to review and approve it before anything happens officially. So that's just my thinking on it.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah.
Well, my question is that before we send it to the other agencies quoted or before we send it to the county that you need the MCC to approve it? That's the process.
I think both. If this is something that the council is promoting, we've looked at this as a sort of a council project. It's not it is kind of your individual brainchild and all of your work. And if you wanted it to be your individual project, irrespective of the council, that's different. But I think as an official council item, that we should, just like we would any other report, review and approve and then have officially sanctioned next steps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the letter goes out.
So let me point out, there's a process section in the report, and what you should do is direct me regarding the process section of the report.
Excuse me, I didn't understand that.
Could you repeat that?
There is a process section in the report, which we talked about at prior meetings. It's unclear in that process section at what point the MCC would, for example, vote to approve this. I was envisioning it as before we sent it to the county and after we had a peer review. Remember, we discussed funding a peer review because I feel this is serious stuff that needs to be vetted. So while I've talked to a number of professionals, nobody is going on the record with their engineering stamp to certify this for a variety of reasons. But I do think it's useful to have peer review. It's up to the council whether they want to hold it up now and review it before they send it to the agencies, hold it up now before they send it to peer review, or do it at the conclusion of that process. But the process is, as now, outlined in the report.
It sounds like a lot of what our confusion is here is this basically Greg's project or is it the MCC's project? So how much oversight and how much investment should we have? And I think that's what we're trying to juggle with. Connie, you had.
I was going to say this, I just don't clear the process. Is it an MCC process going out versus, in the next steps that you're saying to go to these other local agencies? Is it for pure input, but you said you've already spoken to them? Are you looking for input on what's already put in the report or additional information?
Both. Now, of course, it was an MCC process project when I was on the council. I am no longer on the council, and it's your decision whether you wish to continue this project. My sense was to send it to the agencies before we passed it on for peer review to make sure there aren't important errors in the missions in the report.
For data points, then confirmation of data points.
If you do that, it would be without us having reviewed it as a body. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If I did it now, it would be, but you got to tell me.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So that's a lead into my question, but first I want to echo Kimberly's sentiment that I think in order to know if it's an MCC project or a grade project, and before it would go to any other bodies for review or additional content, I would think that that would be an important piece for you to kind of have in your pocket. Is this an MCC project, or are you acting as an individual? Also, I wanted to mention that I've talked to quite a few neighbors since I seem to be on one of your email lists. I've actually started to dig into the report. And as somebody who spent $50,000 to have repairs done to their kitchen after a storm and a eucalyptus fell into our kitchen, it's an issue, I think, all over the place, and I think it's a really important issue to bring forward. I wonder if there may be a way for us to look at two components. One, where the community buy-in is coming from. What community neighbors, friends, et cetera, have you reached out to? Is there any way to look at that data quantifiably? Has anybody signed onto an open letter or a petition is one part of the question. And then the second is, if there's some place you can direct me to for like a preliminary summation of the entities that you feel, based on your extensive research into this, that you would be creating action items for at the end of this, in terms of, the takeaways and what is it we are proposing if it becomes an MCC project or you as an individual. What agencies within the county would you be tapping? Is there some kind of summation that would kind of point us to that?
Well, let me see if I can divide this into two parts. The first question was the scope of the interviews. I don't have an easy way to summarize the dozens of people I've talked to. The Second Street Montera crowd, for instance, had an email chain that I've been on, and it must have 20 people on it. What I do have in the report is a list of supporters and contributors. So those are some of the people who've been most vocal and contributing and, talking to me about it. I expect to expand that list in the coming weeks. So the partial answer is, look at the section of acknowledgements. You can see the contributors and you can see the current supporters. Your second question was the list of agencies. Again, that is partially covered in the process section where I describe distributing it to the agencies I just named in this meeting. Those are the ones who have their initials in here some way or another. Either they've contributed comments or they're impacted by things. So yes, that's sort of in the process section. I don't have the Harbor District and I don't have Coastside County Water. Now, in terms of the county agencies we should go to, I think it's complicated. Ray might speak to this better than I can, because I'm not sure who's responsible for what. And that's one of the findings of the report. Certainly DPW has done patches on roads and has done work on clearing gullies and so forth. Certainly planning has set some standards and collected some monies. I'm asking in the report for somebody to be put in charge. I think the county has to answer that question.
Just wrap up with this follow-up. I have talked to quite a few neighbors who are interested in this, Greg, and you and I have talked individually. I would just say that if this does become an MCC project, or at least preliminarily so, I would be happy to work on social media and getting this out to a kind of broader community, so that that interest, that mutual interest in this project could be quantified for you. So thank you.
That would be great. And if I could just suggest that the council, if it chooses to make this a project, would traditionally appoint a subgroup of 2 or 3 people. And I'd be happy to work with that subgroup if you choose that direction.
Ray, can you shed some light on some of this for us?
Yeah, I appreciate all the good work that's been done on it. What I would say is that when I hear this, what the paradigm I put it on is to what's the end? How do you get to where you are now to the end, and what would happen when the county received it? And frankly, where you're going is where I was trying to go during the last budget cycle. And I'd be really curious to know when that fund was started, because I'm not sure DPW knows. I asked Mencia to create the infrastructure fund, but where this gets to at the end is when you present your final work product, what will happen will be DPW will say, okay, but we need to hire a consultant to do this work. And they're gonna go and they're gonna hire a consultant to then create their own report. And they'll use what you've created to, they're gonna look at it, they're gonna go through it, and they're gonna use it. Well, and what they can take from it, they will. But they're gonna redo a lot of the work, and they're going to, and they'll use it as for community sentiment. So what I would suggest is that we're coming up on our county budget cycle, and what I would like to do as quickly as you could is try to wrap it up so I can take it to the county executive and to DPW. And then what you guys were talking about in terms of using social media and galvanizing the community, this is how we can better work together. In that when I go and I bring this to the county, I need to get 3 votes. So when they hire the consultant, I need 3 votes from the board to say we're gonna allocate money to it. When it comes time to actually make the improvements, which come in the consultant report, I'm gonna need 3 votes. And more than likely, those improvements aren't all gonna be done at once. They're gonna be one at a time done and allocations. And so what I would say, so I really appreciate all the good work that's been done. What we need to do now is we need to work together to get it on the board agenda to hire the consultant and then move toward the next phase.
Ray, could I ask you, does it matter, do you think, to the county whether the MCC actually reviews this and approves it, or whether it just simply comes as something the MCC has worked on but not finalized and it's coming from Greg?
It's great if you guys want to, it's wonderful for you guys to put your stamp on it as the MCC, because then I can go ahead and I can turn to my fellow board members and say, look, this came from the Midcoast Council.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys followed what I did with PMAC, but I went through the trouble of actually reducing their number to 5. So they had a complete board. And I did that because I wanted to provide more persuasive weight to what that body was saying so I could get votes at the board. I could argue to the county, this is what that board did. So if you put your stamp on it, it becomes that much more persuasive. So it's great. Like, I'm fully supportive of you doing that. But I would say is to set the expectation was when I bring it to the county, they're not going to say, okay, well, the MCC has said this and this is what we're going to do. What they're going to say is, okay, we have sentiment from the public, and now we're going to go spend the money to get the consultant that the county uses to do these projects.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
So, given the emphasis that you just put on the need to get this to the board, that you'd like to get this as soon as possible, take it to the board, get it, kind of on track for consideration for funding for next steps. And Greg is saying, well, yeah, I got this middle step where I'd like to send it out to agencies and get them to say, you're all, you're not looking at this right, or here's some other issues that we think need to be incorporated. But those are all things that also would occur in an agency review of a consultant's, product that the county contracted. So maybe, Greg, that step is not so urgent at this time. Maybe it's really something that we need to emphasize, the community input, expression of community desire for this.
Well, if you think that, so what I'd say to Greg is, and to you all, is that if you think you can get those agencies to weigh in on it, as opposed to saying, okay, we have this. So what I would be concerned about is that the agency would say, okay, we'll look at it, and then it would sit somewhere, and then they would consider whether or not they wanted to bring a consultant, and you might get stuck in that agency's politics of getting it done.
It's not really a project to them.
Well, for some might take it more seriously than others. It depends upon who's on their board. But I with you, like, I want to get this project done with you. I know how important this is to the coast. Marisol will tell you how many site visits we've done to different places in the Midcoast that have been affected by those initial storms. I've already had conversations trying to figure out how I can get the consultant hired. It's why we set aside. So I want to move it with you. So the faster that you guys, and Greg, I respect the fact that this was your project while you're here, the sooner that you feel like it's in shape, that you want to let it go and you guys want to bless it, the faster that I can get it funded. And we can put you to work to get everybody calling into the board meeting saying support Ray's proposal for the board. We need this.
Do you want me to
Boris?
comment?
Yeah, I think it'd be good if you commented.
Just a point of information to Ray's point, I pasted it into the chat. The first ordinance for countywide mitigation fees was in November 1990. There have been a series of amendments, and it's in a section on the report. So it's been there for a while. One option is that I could, as an individual, send this to the general managers who I know of all those agencies and just ask for their reaction without making it an official MCC document calling for their review, which, as you properly indicated, could create a bottleneck. So I could just ask the people I know on the staffs to see if they have a problem with anything I've said. I do have to fix a bunch of the formatting. I do have to address issues in Deer Creek. I have to address issues in Burnett's edits. So I got some more work to do, and I can bring it back to the council at the next meeting. And I don't know if I'll have any agency feedback or not, but that's one possibility if you authorize me as an individual to just send it out.
Gus?
Couple of things. One, I'm happy to formally sponsor this if that's what it takes to make it an official MCC project. I think we should just no need to kind of keep talking around that. I would like for it to be an official MCC project. I think we should have a working group. Kevin, I don't know if you would like to be on that because you mentioned doing the social media stuff for it.
Well,
Would you like to be on the working group for that?
I have a question and comment first, but possibly. Yes.
Okay. And then, so Ray, your ideal timeline is as fast as possible, like whatever that is, as fast.
Whenever you guys are ready to give it to me, I'm ready to act on it. So whenever you're ready to do it.
So could we sort of could we as a council commit to having read the thing by next time and then vote on whether we think it's good enough to move it forward?
I want to do and wrap it up, and it's when we're done, when we send it to Ray, we're done.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff going on. Can we maybe push it out to 2 meetings? We have a retreat and we have onboarding for new members.
At our, we'll talk about the timing of the meetings at the
I'm
end.
talking about the timing of saying yes or reading. that.
Yeah, but we don't know when the next meeting is going to be at this point.
Okay. Still have a question.
Yeah.
So I want to just make sure that I heard correctly, and I kind of want to piggyback on what you said. It sounds like you're saying it could go one way or the other. He can, if the group decided to adopt this as a project, it could come to you as is. But what I thought I heard you say is the potential for duplication of efforts and research is very real. And whereas, you mentioned that, and maybe also what I heard is that being able to quantify this within our unincorporated coast side, the community at large, would give you more leg to stand on, if you will, with the additional board members and the agencies that need to be involved. So I want to frame the question as, is this something that you have read and reviewed and in like for certain that this is going to have to be repeated by another agency or another entity is going to have to redo some of the work that Greg has done? And then also, how do you prefer to see community buy-in? Open letters,
So I know that, I'm very confident that the county, when it decides to do this, because I've already had this discussion with them, they're going to go out and get their own consultant to do the work. Like, that's just how the county operates. So county will get a consultant. When the county adopts this as a project, they will get a consultant. And the consultant, so That's not to say this work isn't important. It's persuasive work. It's important to bring, it shows that it's just how serious the MCC is about this. And the consultant will look at that work, obviously. But what will end up happening is you guys are gonna give it to me. I'm gonna take your letter, I'm gonna take with the blessing, I'm gonna go to Public Works, I'm gonna tell them I want this done again, and then I'm going to the county executive to make a proposal to the board for the consultant. At that time, the Department of Public Works will decide whether or not they're gonna endorse it right now. And they will either say, we want to do it, we don't want to do it, or they'll say something in the middle, like we want to do it, but we are not going to be able to get to it until X date. I'm going to bring the proposal to the board. I'll look for another sponsor on the board. I'm sure I can get another sponsor to bring it for the board. I have to get 3 votes. The day it comes up to the 3 votes, it would be great if there were letters from residents in the community and people calling in saying, we need this, and this is why we need it, to explain it. And then that's just how we get it done. But I commit to you tonight, because this has been a priority in our project. Marissa will tell you it's on the wall in my office. When you bless this, we will go ahead and I'll get it in front of the board for a vote.
Great, so Gus, the answer would be yes. I mean, if we got those things hammered out, I would definitely be involved.
Think of the report as evidence. We're not sending them, we're not experts. We're just saying, here's what happens. Here's the evidence of what happens. Please help us, right? That's what you.
That's to a large extent, that's what's gonna be. I mean, they're gonna look at the report and say, this is evidence of I haven't seen the report, so it's hard for me, but I'm sure I have so much respect for Greg. I'm sure it's very comprehensive. There'll be so many stories in it. Like, I'm sure they're going to look at it and say, yeah, this is evidence of community sentiment of how big of a problem this is.
Is Greg the
And if you send a letter attached to it saying, we think that the Midcoast Community Council, this is a huge problem here in the Midcoast, and we believe that the sentiment expressed in this report captures it not just accurately, but perfectly, act on this. That's something that I can use as well.
Great. Kimberly?
Actually, Connie had her hand raised first. Do you want to go first?
Okay.
2 things. We've had many discussions about this report, and my understanding and expectation up to this point was that we were moving forward with this report and that the peer review was imminent. So I think the peer review is still worthwhile in terms of credibility and in terms of holding DPW's feet to the fire on certain things, because having a more credible report, even if efforts are duplicated, which we did expect, means it's more likely for them to take it seriously and to move forward on some things. And my expectation also, especially in light of the last 2 meetings we had, was that there would be actionable, identified recommendations attached to this report. So actual on-the-ground projects that we would be recommending for DPW or whatever agency who has a piece in this to act upon. So thinking about it like that, it's possible that some things would be planned for and implemented, and some things wouldn't. So that's the way I was looking at this. Do I have that wrong, Greg?
You have it right, in my opinion. And the way you eat an elephant is 1 bite at a time. So I think Ray's right in saying it'd be somewhere in the middle. There are a large number, ranging from fairly small to medium sized to large projects, all identified at great length by some professional biologists and other members of the community. And I think one path would be they could pick off the easy ones, the priority ones, like El Granada, Quarry Park, right? 2nd Street, which Ray is already working on in Montera, RCD's been involved. So I think, yes, there are a ton of individual projects identified, and those could be scheduled for, let's call it a first phase of effort while the larger question of building a stormwater management system and maintaining it for the Midcoast gets addressed later.
In the peer review,
It's up to you guys. If you want the peer review before we send it to the county, I
thought we
kind of like
already
that
did
idea,
that.
which is why I suggested it. And yeah, we sort of voted on it. We put it in the budget.
We didn't have, Connie?
I just wanted to make a comment. You can have that analysis paralysis
Mhm.
syndrome happen. And I don't think we want to go there because it is going to be duplicated. So that would be my one comment. And then also that as Gus stated, I am in support of it being a council, something that is supported by the council. So
Okay.
I actually do feel strongly that peer review is needed.
I just want to request or ask, I think it's great that you're going to be more present here because we do work in partnership with your office. And I think that once in committee, would we be able to punt questions to you in terms of methodologies or how we're garnering community support or interest in favor of moving something forward, as opposed to having everybody show up the night of or call in for support to, get 500 signatures and
Yeah,
bring some weight to it.
absolutely, we'll work with you. One of the things that I've been talking about with my staff is what's the most effective way to communicate with people. That's one of the things that we're really trying to dig down into. I haven't been in office 2 years. Different parts of my district, there's different ways, and it's very true for the coast too. Trying to figure out what's the most effective way to get feedback. I think we learned it was funny, from the tsunami event, we did those 7 different office hours up and down the coast. We learned a lot about how to interact with people up and down the coast and so we're trying to perfect that more. So working with you all on that would be great.
you're still smiling too.
Well, thank you.
I like it. I mean, honestly, I really love working with the community. So if you can figure out a way to get me with folks so that we can really understand what's happening, that gives us what's really the trick is galvanizing that to get it so that I actually get the money. And I've said that to you guys so many times. It's about getting the money to get the project done. So on this one, ran into a little bit of it's been a bit of a hurdle to get that money because the argument was, well, there is no district, and these are not going to be inexpensive projects. So, but what I keep saying back to the county is, if it were a city, there's no way you'd let it go this long. It's crazy.
Right.
So how can we let it go like this here? So I'm in on this with you guys.
I think that Chris had something he wanted to say, and then after that, I'd like to try to summarize where we are and see what we're gonna.
Public members with hands raised too.
Yeah, I've got
Go ahead,
will be
Chris.
5 quick things, I think. One is I'd like to, I know it wasn't a motion, but I'd like to second what Gus said. Let's make this an MCC project. I think sounds like we're all in agreement on that. With regard to sending that out to public agencies, I think I'd like us to direct Greg to go ahead and do that. Send that to your executive directors or those contacts that you know, with the understanding that we're not necessarily relying on them to give us all the feedback that we would hope for by the time we send it to Ray. And then I'd like also for us to commit to, is it 1 month? Is it 2 months?
Right.
Time of us reviewing and putting our comments in so that what we send to Ray then incorporates all those comments. That would be
That sounds like a motion.
I just have one last comment though, and is this, like, if you were going to say, Ray, this is the thing we want, like, because I get to go on, if I'm going to go in front of my board now, when you give this to me, and I'm going to say, I need the consultant, this is what has to get done. And so it's kind of like you're about to go on your retreat, when you do your priority setting, knowing which are the ones that, like, this is the project or this is the or, and I used to be a council member myself, when I would say, and we'd say, well, all of them are important. But for me, knowing just some sort of hierarchy, because at the end of the day, if I get stuck having to make a choice to get votes, I need to know which is the one to move. And up until 3 years ago, this problem sort of lingered because it didn't, we were in a terrific drought. And so I really need to know, like, oh, there's if there are other projects that you think come in front of this one, I just need to know that as well.
Makes sense.
So 2 quick add-ons to this. Greg, absolutely, please send it to the Harbor District. The Harbor District has recently constructed stormwater infrastructure as part of the West Point Trail out at Mavericks on its own property, on upland property. And also was just brought to my attention from Lisa Ketchum that there's big stormwater erosion issues on that steep bluff face that is above the new West Point Trail that's making its way all the way down into the harbor. So it's more than just a water quality issue. They've got actual issues on their land that they need to manage.
Okay.
And then my last question is, what was agreed to as far as peer reviewed? Was it a budget item? Was it a budget of?
It was discussed. I don't know that it was approved.
So
was it?
we would approve, so when you say peer review, I wanted to comment on this, because when you say peer review, we need to look at some agency. They have to give us a quote. Can we afford it? What is it going to include? Is it worth it? And then we have to spend the money.
Yeah.
Just meeting that you weren't present at.
I wasn't there.
Nope.
But how could we have approved money for it when we didn't know who was gonna do
Thank you,
it?
Ray.
We authorized spending up to a certain amount
Right.
on a peer review. I think it was
Okay.
$3,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And Greg, did you have any, initial communication with consultants that said, yeah, we'll look at it for 3,000, here's what we'll give you, or have you had any of that conversation?
I had informal discussions with 3 engineering firms who indicated that amount would be sufficient. Of course,
Right.
promises for everything. And Chris, you also provided the names of 3 firms that I did not talk to. You might explore those.
It sounds like we're coming close to reaching a consensus on this, but we do have a couple of public comments which we should allow to. If you could keep them relatively brief, it would be helpful. Sid, go ahead.
Thank you. I wish you wouldn't call it Greg's report. He did it as an MCC project, and someone on the council needs to adopt it as a project moving forward. Take up the reins where he left off. He really worked hard on it, and I would hate to see it just get stuck in a drawer somewhere. So if an MCC member could take it on and continue the project with Greg or without him, that would be great. And a lot of these issues have remained for so long. An example is the Santa Maria Avenue stormwater runoff from Quarry Park. That existed before Ray was even elected. The Quarry Park master plan was approved at the very last board meeting when Don Horsley was still a supervisor on his final day. And the stormwater runoff issue was not addressed in that, even though it was in the master plan, they just completely brushed it aside. When Jim Porter was head of the DPW, there were meetings by Midcoast Stormwater Committee. I know Catherine Slater Carter was on it, but nothing came of it. And I attend via Zoom the CCAG Stormwater Zoom meetings quite a bit, and no money is ever allocated to the Midcoast by county. So I think we do need to get funding, and there's many issues on the peninsula that get the funding, and the Midcoast we seem to get the brush off. I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's easier for them to just tell us, oh, well, we don't have any money for it. But if Ray's going to go to bat for us, I really want to thank him, and I think we should move this forward on behalf of all the work that Greg did. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Jane?
Hi, first off, I wanted to thank Greg for all the work he has done on this. He's really represented the coast side so well. I'm one of the contributors on the Deer Creek section, And I just wanted to point out a couple things about that report as you review it. Most of the report is about problems, but Deer Creek, one of the problems I had when we were discussing putting in a paragraph about Deer Creek is it's not an example of a problem. It's an example of a creek that flows very efficiently through the Corral de Tierra, which means we've got all this rainwater coming off the mountains and suddenly hitting a flat plain. And I went to the First Street site and I saw what would happen if that creek would fail. And we've got a significant amount of housing that would be flooded if anything would to change on that creek. So my letter that I wrote a year and a half ago to Ray Mueller and Don Horsley at the time, I think, is at the very end. I hope you'll take a good look at that. And I really like the idea of having recommendations that would be very clear in the reports so someone see them right away. I like to read, but not everybody does. And I think it was a really wonderful thing. And I just close by saying, I missed the beginning of the meeting. I want to thank Dan and Greg and the others for getting off the committee because you've all done such hard work and you've cared so deeply about the community that we all really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Brunette?
Yeah, just a couple things. I believe, didn't you guys already complete a telecommunications report? And I don't know what process you used to do that, but that was prepared by a resident that was, I believe, approved by the MCC and moved and submitted up the line. I don't know what happened to it beyond that, but that was the first report as part of this binder that was supposed to be prepared to for the CRISP program. So I would think that same process you use for that, if you did approve it, would apply to this one if you're looking for a process to follow. The second thing is you also already have a list of project priorities that you did. It may change, but you do have something to look at that you did prepare and I think submitted to the county. The third thing is I think if nothing else, I believe a peer review is appropriate and would be great if you have the time. The other thing, you can do an internal peer review. You could take the report, break it up amongst some members or all the members. Everybody takes we used to do this one in my old agency. You review it, you look at the support that people are using for their arguments. Does it make sense? Do you come up with the same conclusions? Does the reference meet the requirements of whatever is being said and trying to be supported? That would push it along in a quicker fashion and have it a lot tighter. The other thing was, as far as my recollection of what happened with the funding for the peer review, is that you allocated the funds, meaning you set the funds aside so that there was money available, but you did not approve the spending because you did not have the actual costs at that time, and you needed to know the actual cost before you could approve it. Thank you.
I think you're right, Burnett. Thank you. Lisa?
Yes, the budget item for peer review was on your October 30 agenda and it was not approved. That's all.
What? It was not approved?
It was not approved. There's no minutes for that meeting, but I been watching closely so I can make notations on the supporting documents. So there it is.
Okay, so we can't approve it now. It's not on the agenda.
I think what happened is we did not approve it at that meeting, but then at the next meeting, we approved, as Burnett cited, we approved a threshold that we would set aside.
That was at the time when we didn't know if they were still going to have control of our money, and it was
that was
yeah.
I think that's the November 13th meeting.
The October 30 meeting was a special meeting about funding, and at that time you had received the county email on the funding process that you would be allowed to spend the money you had accumulated, and so the pressure was off, and that's why you didn't approve you just approved the laptop and the $500 for healthcare on the coast. I really think if you're going to you say you approved this at a different meeting, but I really do pay attention to your meetings and keep track that your approved documents are there on the website. And I don't have any recollection of that or how much it was or anything. And so I'm just concerned that how would the public know?
Okay, well, I think you're basically, I think you and Burnett are both basically on the right track. I'd like to,
Just, could I just ask, was there was that telecommunications report reviewed and prepared and approved by the MCC, or was it not?
yes,
All right, thank you. So that's why I'm saying the same approach should apply to what's being done here, because that was a resident who prepared the report. It was reviewed and accepted by the MCC. Greg was a member, even if you want to consider him basically a resident, it would follow the same process.
okay, I think you're right, yeah. So I'd like to kind of summarize where I think we are, and then we can make a decision. It sounds as though, I may be wrong, but it sounds like there's a consensus that we would like to have the MCC sponsor this report, that we would like to have a peer review done. And we also want it to be as rapid as possible, and that Gus is willing to spearhead and organize this. Is that basically where we are?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, do we need to do anything to facilitate that for you, or just turn it over to you?
I think, well, so I think if we have to, since it's not on the agenda tonight, if we're going to vote to send it to peer review, we would have to do that next time.
Yeah.
Which means everybody's got to commit to reading the report by next time so that we can vote on it next time.
Or are we going to vote on?
We would be voting to send it to peer review.
Okay. So we will have to read it, and then you'll make sure it gets on the agenda.
Yes, I'll make sure it gets on the agenda, and I'll work with Greg to make sure it's pretty enough for everybody to read.
Claire, are you setting a time for us to read it by?
We have to
Decide on
by
that.
2 weeks from today.
If we have a meeting 2 weeks from today, that's a question we're going to bring up in a minute.
All right.
Whatever the next meeting is.
Yes, okay, whenever the next meeting is, I revise that.
Okay. I think this sounds pretty promising. I think we might do this. I'd like to move along to the council activity. Is there anything any meetings people attended or that they want to report on since the last time?
Hand is still up, as is Greg's.
We're pretty much
I just
closing.
raised mine.
Greg, do you want to comment on what we decided?
No, I wanted to volunteer as a former council member on some council member activity.
You have council activity to report. Okay, go ahead.
So you're aware that Caltrans received our issue regarding the lighting on Highway 1 in Montera, and they said, we'll take care of this. We then subsequently received from Caltrans a report that said we couldn't figure out what the location was. Now, I had used their GPS map, and I listed in the text Highway 1 and the streets between which it occurred. So somebody needs to write them back. They said, reopen the ticket if you disagree with this. So I could do it, or somebody on the council needs to take that and stick it in Caltrans' face again. I have the address of the new public information officer at Caltrans. The previous one was unresponsive. This new lady did write back to me pretty quickly. So I could, for instance, raise it with her, but I'm not on the council, so I'd need your approval to follow up on that Caltrans ticket to register the lighting problem in Montera on Highway 1.
I think the original ticket was in your name, not in the MCC's name. Is that correct?
That's correct, although I probably listed my title as vice chair at the time.
I can work on that with Greg.
Okay.
I can throw that I'm on the Transportation Authorities Council. I throw some other stuff in there to try to grease the wheels on getting a response.
If I could just quickly, I read through that and I suspect, I hate to say this, but I suspect that you have to be incredibly more specific and actually mention the actual light fixtures, which weren't mentioned in the description. It just said blue light, and I think they need that level of detail. It seemed obvious to me, but for Caltrans purposes, I think you have to actually say light fixtures.
So I will, Gus, I'll take the action item to go down there and record any numbering on each of the light fixtures that I can find. And I'll send that to you.
And look at your phone for GPS coordinates and put the GPS coordinate of every lighting fixture that we're talking about.
Well, many light fixtures have serial numbers too, so the Caltrans
We'll,
find them.
we'll do all the things. Serial numbers, GPS, like,
And tell them to go at nighttime.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Just, are we moving to a different council activity?
Go ahead.
So I have something I just want to make you aware of that is not necessarily council related activity, although it is in that I raised awareness about the lighting ordinance that we've proposed to the Air Force Station at Pillar Point. The Air Force Station is proposing to add a new antenna, similar to the large golf ball shaped antenna that's there now. The new antenna will be medium sized, so not as large, but larger than the smallest one. And so this came before the Coastal Commission at their last meeting to review and provide comment, although they don't need the permission of the Coastal Commission to make the installation. The Coastal Commission just essentially blesses it. So I actually gave public comment and submitted a letter as an individual. I did not mention my affiliation with the MCC. However, what I did do is refer them to the MCC's letter that we submitted to the Board of Supervisors to propose the lighting ordinance as a reference. So to let you know that they're aware, and they actually did respond. And they're looking at addressing the lighting issues. It's on their radar, and we hope that they will address the lighting issues at what is called now the Pillar Point Space Force Station. So that's my report.
You have council activity?
I do. I think so. I think it's under this. So I was talking to, I think it was Lisa Ketchum, and she was mentioning all of the different meetings that this group has historically tried to attend or be present at or have a presence at. And I'm not posing a question at this point, but I'm wondering if that's going to be kind of covered for us.
That's at the retreat.
Okay, very good.
Any other council activity? It's been the holidays, but.
Is
Fair
the
question.
planning referrals, is this under,
But basically what pardon me?
you know, the planning referrals that we've talked to about the projects from planning department, is that?
That
all
doesn't come up now.
Not here?
No.
Okay.
It could if something
If,
grows to.
but he's got some specific ones that he's working on. If the planning group decides whether to agendize them, and basically what happens if we don't agendize them, the referrals that we send to the planning department get sent to all the council members, and that's usually the end of it, unless something happens.
All right.
Okay. Okay, future agendas. We've got a lot of new people here. We've got a lot of new people with new ideas. There's
some hands up and Lisa's waving at you.
Lisa's waving at me. Thank you. Lisa, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. I waited until now. So on your consent agenda, item 6B, the spending item was approved without posting or reading the resolution you were voting on. No dollar amount details. So I don't think this complies with the Brown Act. And how did the council members know what they were voting on? And so at this point, I at least would ask, would you provide the resolution and or the details of the purchase for posting on the website after the fact? And I just.
Well, hold on just a second.
Purchase?
What?
Which purchase are we talking?
We're talking about the HDMI cable and the
6B on the agenda.
yeah, 6B. And the power strip, which were not delineated here.
Yeah, the public has no idea what you voted on.
That's a good point.
What should we do?
Well, I mean, normally I would say, well, that vote doesn't count, but I don't know how urgent this is.
It's urgent.
Well, I'm not gonna tell on you, but I mean, it's just like, please don't do this. Public has to be open and public government, you know.
Wait a minute, is it posted? Oh, there was a resolution.
It's not in one of the past meetings.
No, I mean, I wrote one for this meeting.
It doesn't.
I saw it.
It's not posted. It's not posted. So sorry, we thought we had a resolution.
So how did you guys see it if it wasn't from the website? I mean, you passing documents around to the council, but not sharing them with, I don't
No.
understand how this happens.
No, I think we're just confused. This is our mistake. Sorry.
Well, I am curious to know how the council members got what you voted on.
Because we know what Zoom entails and we are aware of what an HDMI cable is and would cost. So we just assumed that the resolution was there. It's our fault that the resolution wasn't posted. Our mistake. We apologize.
Here's the
But I
resolution.
mean, this sounds like a group email. You were talking about these items.
We can revote.
Just hold for her.
Can we let Gus read the resolution? Because he has it on his.
Let me share my
thing.
screen.
And again, my apology. I think I was just going on what we discussed last time.
Okay, so here, so resolution of the Midcoast Community Council approving the purchase of audio-visual hardware necessary for remote participation in meetings. Resolved by the Midcoast Community Council that whereas all MCC meetings are hybrid in nature and therefore must support remote participation. And whereas remote participation has for some time been provided using the personal laptop and audiovisual equipment of 2024 Vice Chair Greg Dieguez. And whereas former Vice Chair Dieguez has rolled off the Midcoast Community Council, and whereas the Midcoast Community Council does not have the audiovisual equipment necessary to enable a laptop to provide remote participation with, and whereas remote participation by the public is a critical component of how the Midcoast Community Council fulfills its duly designated purpose of representing the citizens of the Midcoast, and whereas the funds to procure the required audiovisual equipment already exist and have already been allocated to the Midcoast Community Council by the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, thereby ensuring that the purchase of said items will have no impact to the budget of San Mateo County. And whereas discussion of authorizing the purchase of said equipment is being held in a public meeting with ample opportunity for public comment. Okay, so maybe we might have fumbled the football a little bit on that bullet point. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Midcoast Community Council hereby approves the purchase of audiovisual equipment necessary to ensure continued remote participation by the public for a combined expenditure not to exceed $500 in accordance with the existing procurement and accounting practices designated by the Office of the Comptroller of San Mateo County.
Thank you very much for reading that. And yes, there it is. The discussion was being held in a public meeting with ample opportunity for public comment. And I just would stress that you don't overlook this, please. And just send it along to me and I'll post it with the documents for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Do we need to revote?
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, we probably need to revote.
Okay, but Sid's got her hand raised, so we should allow public comment on
this?
On this, yes.
Sid, do you want to comment on our purchase of Zoom equipment?
No, the only thing I wanted to mention was I didn't see any posting this time on Nextdoor for the agenda for this meeting. Is there someone designated for that?
It was posted.
It was
Was
posted.
it? I just missed it.
It was posted.
Okay.
I
thank you.
posted it.
So I kind of just started taking
Okay.
pictures.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to purchase equipment as delineated in the resolution?
I move to approve the motion just read by Gus Mottamal.
I second that.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Could we call the roll, please?
Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Connie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Kimberly is a yes. Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, for future meetings, there's a lot to say. It's usually just like we ask for suggestions, but right now the biggest thing that I would like to see happen is the retreat, because we really need to get ourselves on the same page. And so far, we have 5 members of the council who have said that they could make it on Saturday, January 18th. Gus and Scott, I'm not sure about.
It would depend on what I'm flying back from New York that day. I don't land in San Jose until I think it's 2:30 or something, and I would have to get here from San Jose airport.
So in theory, you could do it if it started at 4.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a possibility. You can't?
I can't do it if it starts at 4. I was thinking noon to 5.
Well, we do usually would do it earlier in the day. We have a really big problem here because Kimberly will not be here in February.
If I'm the only bottleneck, just start without me and I'll get here as fast as I can.
I hate to do that, but
I mean, if I'm.
Okay, I'll come whenever it starts on the 18th.
is there another weekend that would be better for anybody? That's still in January?
Oh, well, that's
Can you send an
next
email?
weekend. That's only next weekend.
I know.
I mean, we could try the first week in February.
You would still be available first
I
week of
can
February?
try
I
and,
can do the 25th. There's some on Saturday, the 25th.
You're on the 25th, Gus?
I'm here on the 25th.
I'm also here on the 25th.
I cannot do the 20th. That's one weekend I couldn't do.
so what about the first weekend in February?
I could only do the morning of the,
That's the 1st and the 2nd.
I could do the morning of the 25th, but that's it.
I can do the morning of the 25th.
And now you're asking about the 1st and the 2nd.
The first week in February, yes.
Saturday, I can do Saturday the 1st.
I
Does
I can do the morning of the
does
25th.
morning go to noon for you?
Yeah, I just have, yeah, or 1.
Yeah.
But that would be it. I could
Morning
do
of the
one-
25th.
Morning of
What
the,
do we think?
Well, it sounds like we have two options.
Let's definitely 2 options. Morning of the 25th.
Or
Any objections?
is,
No?
I didn't quite follow what Connie was saying because I was looking at something. Is that a big problem or not? Should we try for the first?
I could do the morning
Morning of the
until
25th.
1 PM.
Okay, so then we need to probably start early and because we got a lot of stuff.
Can
Okay,
Scott, do it.
so, great. Okay.
Done.
So, no, we're not totally done. That part's done. I'm sending out, Kimberly and I are gonna be working closely together, right? In terms of chair, co-chair. It's not just like a one-man show here. But we are going to be sending out either tomorrow or Friday some materials for people to look at. Some of it's for the retreat, some of it's, I'd like to get responses right away. And there's 3 parts to what we're sending. One is meeting conduct and how it is structured. I want your opinions on that because there's a lot of leeway as to how we do things. And I'd really like to hear what people want because I'd like to make sure that people get what they need, what they want. So there's that. And then there's a section on priorities for the next year. And which you don't have to respond to, just look at it before the retreat and be prepared. And then the third section is tasks or duties or responsibilities or whatever you want to call it, that the council members take on for the year. And you don't have to respond to that either, but be ready for it at the retreat. Because if we're ready with these things, it'll go faster.
Okay.
The other thing is that we need as many people as possible to know how to run the Zoom part of the meeting so that this is the last one that Greg's going to do. So we have to be able to step in and make it work. And Greg is willing to train people to do it. And I think Gus and me and Kimberly and Kevin have all said we'd be willing to meet with
I
Greg.
use it regularly. I'm happy to volunteer, but I think we should have a second or a backup.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I want as many people as possible to. And so Greg, could you maybe figure out some times and get and set up what works for you for you to train us?
Well, I just want to clarify, this would be a weekend thing, if I understand Kimberly's working?
No. This is a separate thing. The retreat is on a weekend, but you training us how to run the Zoom meetings would be at everybody's mutual convenience.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Why don't you figure out what your mutual convenience is? I think the group of you would have more restrictions than I would.
I'll text you, Greg.
Yeah.
I'm happy to learn how to do this too.
Great.
Right.
Keep in mind, Zoom is only one thing. There's also MailChimp, there's updating the website. You're going to need somebody authorized by Lisa, et cetera, et cetera.
Kimberly and I would like to meet with you on those things and see where we are with that. And then we'll bring that to the group if we need to.
Can I ask one favor question regarding communications to the group? I sent out a personal email from my personal email address, not before I was sworn in or constrained by the Brown Act. If you could, when you're sending us items that you want us to respond to right away, or any item that is like a separate entity of and in itself, can that be sent out in a new email in the subject line with what it is and what you're requesting? It would be very easy to follow.
That would make sense.
Thank you.
Mhm. I think when I did that, I thought the entire council was on the original thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
I
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any other thoughts about future agendas or anything else that people want to bring up before we stop?
Well, is there a meeting in 2 weeks? I didn't understand.
Yeah, I guess there is, since, well, no, that's a good question.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll bring it to the retreat, whatever you've already determined was priorities previously, if we could get some details on that before meeting, if we need to read that, just so we come in prepared on.
That's a good idea. I'll try to include that. It is on the website, but I'll try to. include
Yeah,
it.
whatever you've looked at
Yeah.
most recently.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good question, Kevin. So we're having the retreat on the 25th. Our next scheduled meeting is on what, the 22nd. What do we want to do?
I'm having surgery and I apologize. So the 22nd, my eye surgery, remember I talked to you about that. I have to have that. So I pushed it off so I could be here today.
So you will not be here on the 22nd.
I should be able to see. I could be here, but I have 2 bandages on my eyes.
Do you, what's the feeling of the council? Should we still have the meeting on the 22nd or should we skip it?
No, we should have it because we need to vote on the stormwater thing.
Yeah,
so
the
we can send it
stormwater.
to the peer review.
Okay, so we should have a brief meeting.
Yeah.
Sure. So our brief meeting.
Okay,
Brief meeting's always
is
good.
that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's fine. And also if Kevin, since he can't be here, could perhaps,
Get an agenda earlier and get some.
well, you could send feedback and comments to the chair if you
Of
have
course,
any
that would be
for us to use in the meeting.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you,
and
Kimberly.
if you're feeling up to it, you can log in on Zoom.
Yeah.
There will be a picture of me, but yeah.
Sorry.
My puppy.
Future impact. I think just given everything that's happening in Southern California, I think we should think about, is there a project around?
Yeah.
Checking what, like, if there's a fire on those hills, do we have pressure in those fire hydrants? Like, what is it
Yeah.
like, how, like, because I think that has been like a touchy issue in the past. And so we'll have to be navigated very carefully, but I'm happy to take the lead on that.
Thank you.
If there's interest in the council for doing.
What do you mean by touchy issue? I'm not understanding what you mean by that.
There is some history around the question of pressure in the fire hydrants out there, and that,
Locally.
and it's been a touchy issue, is my understanding.
Actually, the boom.
Particularly in Moss Beach and Montero.
Yes. Residents, the fire service, like all kinds of things, touchy for lots of people. There's a lot of history there.
So you might explore an agenda item.
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to explore agenda item like that if there's other interest in the council for my doing that. If nobody cares, then
I think we
live
hear.
at the base of Quarry Park. I have fear of Quarry Park catching on fire and burning my neighborhood down.
Yeah.
I do believe I'm on Hetch Hetchy water, and I think the fire hydrant should be powered up with Hetch Hetchy water. So,
that's the thing, we think,
yeah,
but how do
I
we
don't
know?
know for sure.
Are you on coastside water?
Yeah, I am, but not everyone in my neighborhood is. Some people have wells.
I don't think I've even
Yes.
seen the fire hydrant on the streets.
Like a lot of, we have a lot of wells.
There are multiple sources for coastside water. I know that. I
Kimberly?
do.
Yeah.
Not just
So
Hetch Hetchy.
maybe we could get a speaker. I support that. And maybe we could get a speaker to come just talk to that particular issue if you can figure out who that would be.
I'll reach out to my contacts in the fire service.
Because I know in Montera and Moss Beach, that's also an issue that has come up because their water comes from elsewhere.
Yeah, it does. Oh, it's local.
And
Water's local.
Yeah.
okay. Anything else? Shall we adjourn? Do we have to take a vote on adjourning these days or not?
So
Could I make one comment on a priority?
Go ahead.
We need to install the email forwarding for the new council members. That is
I thought we
something I
were
will
gonna
be
do
doing for the last time. and I need somebody to watch me while I do it. There's magic involved. I don't do it frequently, so I don't remember the magic. So we need an immediate training session on forwarding the emails and presumably removing me from that list, as well as Dan and Ann. So I would like a volunteer, say tomorrow sometime. I don't know when you guys can do it, to learn how to do the Gmail forwarding magic, and we'll take screenshots and write it down and document it for future generations.
You know, I don't think there's any secret to any of this. I don't want to hog it, but I think Kimberly and I had both agreed that we wanted to meet with you and do all those things, the two of us, and get it done. So if we could do that shortly, that would be great.
So you're saying you want to do it tomorrow?
Well, you know, my suggestion is the sooner the better, so that the new members get their MCC emails.
Are you able to do it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I could do it at like 4 o'clock.
4
Or I
o'clock?
could do it. Ooh, that's basically what I could. Yeah.
4 o'clock is fine with me. And I could do it over Zoom, maybe. I don't know if you want to try and go to GCSD. You let me know.
So ideally, I think you were thinking it would be better to come here and do
That was because of the screen issues, but the screen issues are no longer existing. They've been straightened out.
Okay.
May I just add to this, a reminder to the 3 new council members to send your contact information, whatever phone number, if you want to put on, and the email that you're going to use as a council member. So I can post it on the website.
They've already done that, except I don't know if you sent your phone numbers. You might want to do
I
that.
want to include my number, so.
Well, then that's fine.
But
If
I
you
haven't,
want, you
I
can on the
haven't
website
received it,
send
and
them.
I'm the website admin to put it on there.
Oh, Lisa, I thought you had my number. I thought I pinged you and said I just created an email, but okay.
So I will be in this building at 4 o'clock, or at 3, and I would be happy to meet here.
I'm open to whatever you want to do.
Greg, could you meet with Kimberly and me in this building tomorrow at 4?
Yes, I can. Do we know if GCSD has it available?
If they don't, we'll meet in the lobby or something. I will check and make sure.
I'll write Hope and the assistant and see if we can meet there. I'll just get that done.
4 o'clock, can we piggyback this partial Zoom intro?
Oh, that's a thought. I don't know. Check.
Great. I'll be around. Chris, I don't know if you'll be around, but could we piggyback some of the intro to Zoom on that tomorrow as well?
I'll have to see what kind of cables I have and how it will work.
I have everything at my house. I have an HDMI and the power strip. I can take a look at what else was requested. If you text me, I can make sure I have it by 4.
But you weren't the only person that was going to be going to that.
He said yes.
You could go.
Yeah.
Maybe Scott could go. Maybe Gus, you're probably working.
No chance.
Yeah.
You say,
All right, so I'll commit to coming to the office, and I'm not sure what Zoom aspects you want, but you know, I'll bring
We have to do our some stuff first.
okay,
and we'll get
Ready?
okay.
Yeah. 4:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
This is great. Everybody's chipping in. Good.
so we're scheduled for 4 o'clock tomorrow.
And the rest of the folks are there for 4:30.
We'll come at 4:30.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Did we cover all future agenda items?
I think we're good for right now.
Okay,
I'm
So-
to adjourn.
so then that was the question. Are we going to be moving to adjourn these days? Or is it just going to be, how are we going to handle that going forward?
I think we had to vote on adjourning when we were on Zoom, but I don't think we have to vote on adjourning when we're actually here.
I think we can adjourn by acclamation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
then
By
we-
not being here?
By just leaving. Voting with our feet.
We survived.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
good job.
God,
Thanks for coming.
I missed a meeting. I did not even know that I
There
missed.
was